What's up? What's up, true believers? What's going on? It is your boy, OMD X300, aka Doc Savage, the man of bronze. And I'm coming to you live right here on YouTube. And it is another episode of Comic Book Corner. That's right, Comic Book Corner is live. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Let me try to get this camera right. Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today's episode, we will be talking about a couple of things. A few things, actually. I've recently acquired, through some incredibly wonderful hands, some new comic book material that I think you'd be very interested in. And I also will be talking about none other than the release of Captain America Brave New World. That's right, Captain America Brave New World. It's been in the works now for quite a while. And they've been trying to perfect this film for a lot of reasons. And I think some of them are political, which I hate to admit. And I think some of them are also just because of the fact that we have a new Captain America who happens to be a brother. And there's a lot of people who aren't really happy about the fact that Anthony Mackie has taken on the moniker of Captain America. That, to me, is a travesty. But I digress. We'll go on. And I welcome you. It's January 20th, 2025. And today, unfortunately for a lot of people, is Inauguration Day. It's also the day we celebrate a civil leader who's passed away. I just want to give props out and shout out to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., pioneer, wonderful man, incredible person. And his legacy will live on. And we certainly appreciate what he did. I certainly surely appreciate what he did for me as being an African American or a black male in the United States. Probably wouldn't be able to do Comic Book Corner and do a show like this or a podcast like this if it wasn't for the diligence of such a great leader. So I just want to give him a shout out. This is his federal holiday, and hopefully you got a chance to be home and enjoy the day off. Let's start off with some incredible books that I acquired over the holidays. I want to give a shout out to my wonderful girlfriend, Sonia Ingersoll. Yeah, I said her name. That's my baby, who looked out for me and helped me acquire these books. A couple of them, they're very amazing. One of them is called Marvel Greatest Comics, 100 Comics That Built a Universe by Joe Quesada. I'll just give you a gander of what that looks like. That is what it looks like right there. This is an amazing book. It's got a lot of stories. On the back, it says 100 Comics That Built a Universe. If you want to know what makes Marvel great, look inside. This is a specially curated celebration of Marvel Comics with expert commentary from a panel of eminent insiders, stretches back more than 80 years to showcase some of the most trailblazing, inspiring comic books ever created. Boasting incredible imagination, amazing artwork, and superior storytelling, these are the comics that changed the face of an industry and forged an enduring universe of wonders. I keep getting messages here. Let me see. I don't know if somebody's trying to tell me something. Somebody posted something to me. I don't know what he's trying to say, but I'll get back to him. doing a show right now. But just like I said, this is an amazing book. An amazing book. Here's some of the. It kind of crafts and tells you the stories of some of the greatest from the Submariner. If you could see that, the Submariner, Human Torch. Uh, what else? The origin was actually a fight between Namor and the Human Torch, which I think is amazing. And also the creation or the inception of Captain America when he first came to the Marvel Universe. This is a hell of a book right here. Hell of a book. And I want to thank her for that because it's amazing. I've been reading it and it blew me away seeing some of these things. The next one we're going to talk about is this particular book right here, and it's called Marvel's Masterworks Amazing Spider-Man number 1 through 10 and Amazing Fantasy number 15 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Now, this book right here kind of blew me away for the simple fact that the artwork is some of the original people who started illustrating and writing stories for Marvel. You could kind of tell that by some of the art that's inside of it. If I'm hopefully showing this to you right, let me know if you can see it. Look at that. That is amazing. Look at that, man. That is cool right there. I know I sound like a real super geek, and I always have been a big geek for comic books. And so I want to thank her for blessing me with those amazing, amazing books that I happen to, cherish. I also have some other books that I got. I got one from a friend of mine named Laura a couple of birthdays ago. It's a DC book, and it shows all of the origins of all of DC, from Superman, Batman, all of the villains. It's a pretty Shazam, the inception of Shazam. And I learned a lot about Captain Marvel by reading that book. Obviously, you know that there's a wizard who endowed Billy Batson, which is a young boy. He was actually an orphan who was found some foster parents, and he I think the story goes, he went into a cave or something to that effect, and he ran into the wizard, which endowed him the power of, if you spell out the word Shazam, all of those letters are acronyms for uh, gods, from Zeus, um, Mercury, a bunch of these, it all comes into one, which endows the name Shazam. And when he invokes that name, he turns into Captain Marvel. A funny thing about Captain Marvel was created by DC to kind of mess with Marvel Comics, which I thought was pretty funny. Uh, Obviously, Marvel returned fire by creating a Captain Marvel of their own, who ended up being a female, because the original Captain Marvel, who was a male, a lot of people may not know that, but the original Captain Marvel in Marvel Comics was a man, and he ended up dying, and his wife took on the moniker. At least that's what I remember from reading the comics many, 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 many years ago. Thanks, Mom, for throwing away like 6, 7 boxes of comic books that probably would be very valuable today. But it is what it is. But his wife took on that moniker, and now the modern day story is I forget the name of the character. Oh God, I can't. It's escaping me right now. But the modern day version is the film you saw where the girl's in the Air Force and she was testing a special plane or something with some new type of alien engine technology, where it subsequently crashed, and she was endowed with the power of that engine, which made her invulnerable, super strength, super speed, space flight, without having to have a mask on and all these different things. That story's changed over the while. If you notice, if you're a true comic book fan, you notice that Marvel Studios, or the MCU, the Marvel Comic Universe, which is the film versions, is totally different from the comic book versions. I've always been very kind of saddened by that, because the simple fact is, I think the comic book versions would be better suited for the movies. I really believe that. It should have been a natural tie-in with all these films that they've had. It should have been a natural transition where all these people ended up meeting each other, like Daredevil meeting Spider-Man. We've had so many different people which have played Spider-Man and people like that. And I'll tell you why that is, because it's basically what they're doing is they're giving you the different comic origins of Spider-Man. The different comic origins being the different titles that Marvel has written about Spider-Man, from the Spectacular Spider-Man, the Web of Spider-Man. There's actually a comic that's just titled Spider-Man. That particular comic that was just titled Spider-Man was the one that Tobey Maguire starred in, and it was directed by Sam Raimi. If you don't know who Sam Raimi is the guy who directed all of the Evil Dead films, the original Evil Dead films. And he also, one of his latest films, I'm sure you know about, was Drag Me to Hell. Drag Me to Hell, which was a great movie. It was actually pretty scary. And it was probably one of the scariest films that Sam Raimi's ever done, as far as I'm concerned. Drag Me to Hell was a story about a young lady who worked in a bank, and an old gypsy came to see if she can get a loan to keep her house. And for some reason, they just would not, do the loan. And she begged the girl, please, 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 if you could just help me. If you could just help me get this loan, I could pay, my house off, and I won't be homeless. And the girl thought about saying yes and approving the loan. She had a chance to do it, but she just didn't do it. And she was steadfast, and she thought about what her boss said, and she rejected the lady. Well, the lady subsequently cursed that girl, and eventually she said that she would be taken down to hell because she didn't help the old lady out. What a great movie. That was directed by Sam Raimi, who also directed Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man film. Now, the film that Andrew Garfield was in, I don't know if you know that actor, Andrew Garfield, he played in Spider-Man as well, and where Jamie Foxx played Electro, and there was some gentleman that played Rhino, and Rhino is not a mechanical villain. For those who know, the Rhino that you see in the film that's out now called Kraven the Hunter, that is the Rhino of the Spider-Man comic books. It's a man who is a half man, half rhino. That is the Rhino from Spider-Man. The Rhino that was in that Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, not the same Rhino that we know of. There was a mechanical Rhino in that film. And also, Jamie Foxx, who plays Electro in the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, is not actually the the Electro from that comics as well. Electro is not, I repeat, is not a black character. Even though I love the fact that the DC studios and the Marvel studios have changed some of these characters into different races. I thought that was cool. It's a very inclusionistic thing. They're including a lot of actors of color and giving them roles that they subsequently probably wouldn't have had if they hadn't decided to do so. Nick Fury, for years and years, was a white man with white hair on the side of his head. He had like white patches. There's a few characters in Marvel Comics that have this same look. Reed Richards is a character that has that look. He's a white guy with like gray patches in his hair. There's a couple of other ones. There's a Marvel Comics X-Man, or not really an X-Man, but he was the creator and founder of a group called X Factor, named Forge. He's now a black character, and I think he always was black. But if I remember correctly, back in the day when I read the comics, Forge was a white man with a similar hairstyle as Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four, and also Nick Fury. But now we know Nick Fury to be a black man like Sam Jackson, who portrayed him absolutely amazingly. I must add, I got to give it to Sam. You give him anything, he'll give you, you give him the role, he'll sink his teeth in it and become that person. So I have to give a lot of props to Sam Jackson and his acting skills. Um, what's happening, my bro? I see we got some people on the chat. Thank you for being here. Electro, definitely a nerdy white dude historically. Yes, you are absolutely right. He was a nerdy white dude. Actually, Electro was very unassuming as a man. Him becoming a villain was accidental, which subsequently drove him insane, the powers that he was given. He got drunk with power and became a villain. So you're absolutely right, Chris. He was definitely a very unassuming character, or an unassuming villain. A lot of people don't really know about Joker was kind of like that. Joker lost his mind as well. There's been a lot of different stories and origins, like the Tim Burton Batman. The Tim Burton Batman, Jack Napier was a gangster. And a lot of other origins of Joker, Jack Napier was just a comedian that, not really Jack Napier, but he had another name. The Joaquin Phoenix's character really embodies, even though that film is terrible, the first Joker I didn't even like, and the second one was even worse. But his character embodies uh, really embodies who the Joker was before he became the famed uh, criminal villain that stalked Batman for so many years. But I have to give it to Tim Burton. I like his version of the Joker and his origin. Jack Napier was a real sinister guy who subsequently kills Bruce Wayne's family and becomes the Joker. I like that story. I always did like that story. It was different. It was bold, and wasn't the Joker Joe Cool? Not that I remember. If you go look that up, you'll find that the Joker was a struggling comedian that had a wife who really loved him. She really loved that man. I'll admit that woman loved the Joker, or his original name, which escapes me at the moment. This is the reason why I say you should Google it, because you'll get the actual original story. And he was just not getting any gigs, and he wasn't. And she was expecting they were going to have a child, and he decided that because he couldn't get any comic jobs, that he would go do a job with some gangsters. And he impersonated a gangster that was plaguing Gotham City at the time, that wore like some type of a red mask. I forget the name of him. It wasn't the red mask. I think it was another name. And the Batman subsequently showed up to foil their plot in that crime. And he ended up falling in a vat of chemicals, just like in the Tim Burton film, which should have killed him, but actually morphed him into the Joker. It changed his looks, it changed his face, it gave him that permanent smile, and he knew that his wife would think he was hideous. She saw, when he went home to see her, when she saw him, she subsequently passed away, which subsequently killed the baby. And this is a story that I read a long time ago. But there's been so many different stories that have been told in regards to the origin of the Joker. So many. And that's where these universes come from. Even in DC, they have parallel universes. The storyline in the DC world, when it comes to variants, they decided to create parallel universes where they considered there was an Earth 1, or an Earth 2, or an Earth 3. All of these different Earths have different Supermans, have different Green Lanterns, have different Robins, have subsequently different stories and different origins of each of the superheroes, or the metahumans, they call them, and that in the DC world, very differently from Marvel. Marvel, they just call them variants. and parallel universes, and subsequently where Endgame came from. And when you watch the Endgame films, Ant-Man shows you how they learned how to, go through time by going microscopic, because it's basically like going through time when you go microscopic. I don't know how that works as far as the science is concerned. I've watched the movie several times and I still don't get it. Chris says, so he was mistaken for Buddy that killed Martha Wayne and Thomas Wayne. No, I don't think Batman thought that more than I forget the guy's name who killed his parents, who killed Batman's parents. There's a comic, if you look this up, there's a comic that shows, just like when Spider-Man killed Uncle Ben's character, or he was going to kill Uncle Ben's character and didn't in the comic books. He actually brought him to justice. He could have killed him. Batman tracked down who killed his parents when he got older. He was obviously an older man when he came of age, because if any of you guys remember, or even know, I should say, Batman's character, Bruce, decided when he got to a certain age that he would run away. Not necessarily run away, but travel the world to learn all these different things. There was a time that Bruce was in Japan and he studied in a ninja clan. In the Batman film, Batman Begins, by Christopher Nolan and played by Christian Bale, they say that he goes to the League of Assassins. That's not true. That's a different variant or a different story. What Bruce ended up doing is he went to Japan and studied under a ninja master and learned, Batman knows several different martial arts, taekwondo, he knows karate, he even studied some kung fu. There are some comics where he was actually in China for a time. Batman also lived on the other side of the law just to see how criminals think for a time. When he was over in Singapore in the Far East, Batman joined a gang and they subsequently stole things and robbed warehouses. And he learned how criminals think to be able to, see how they tick. All different types of criminals all around the world. Bruce studied them. When Bruce Wayne got back together, he did a lot. He did a lot in a long time. And a lot of people seem to think that, he graduated university. Well, he did go to college, but he never finished. This is what I was understanding. There's a lot of different comic books, because there's no way that Batman or Bruce Wayne could have left as a child or left as a teenager to go do all these things and not subsequently graduate from college. There was no way he could do all of these things all at the same time and then come back, regain his moniker as Bruce Wayne over the company. And, he was gone for several years to train. He was gone for several years to study. He was gone for several years to find out and hone his abilities to become the vigilante that he became. So there was no time for school. He did learn while he was away, but you can't, he had to be at 10, 15 places at one time to be able to do all this. So his story is a unique one. To be honest with you, the differences between the heroes in Marvel Comics versus the heroes in DC Comics, if everybody knows, DC has a lot of fictitious cities. These cities they're not real in our world. Marvel is one of those comic book companies that use real cities, from New York, DC, LA, as where DC would use cities like Gotham, Central City. What's the one that there was in LA City? I forget what they call it. And that's where Green Arrow is from. Green Arrow's in a city that's on the West Coast. The only real city in DC Comics is Washington, D.C. That's the only real city. They never talk about Florida. They never talk about it's really funny how DC decided they weren't going to use real city names as to where Marvel uses city names. There's a lot of Southern comic book heroes in Marvel Comics that a lot of people don't know about. Some of them we're going to talk about on the next episode, which is going to be a really good one, because I'm going to have some very obscure obscure, meaning ones you may not have ever really heard about. I'll give you one right now, and his name is Night Thrasher. And I'm going to kind of concentrate on a lot of black superheroes, which a lot of people don't get a chance to hear about, Night Thrasher being one of them. They do, you know what? They do talk about Kansas. I stand corrected. Chris, you are exactly right. They do talk about Kansas. Smallville is obviously not a real city in Kansas, but that's where Superman was raised, in Smallville. But there's a lot of cities. But you never hear about Florida. You never hear about Texas. You never hear about California. Well, you heard about Cal. That's a lie. I'm lying again. The Christopher Reeves film, the original Superman that was made in 1982, they did talk about California and the West Coast, because Lex Luthor fired two missiles, and he gave Superman a choice. You can either save the people in Hackensack, New Jersey. He did mention New Jersey. And he said, or you can either save the people on the West Coast of Los Angeles, because he shot a missile to the San Andreas Fault. That is true. I stand corrected. But the majority of the time, and I defy anyone to find this out, the majority of the time when they talk about cities in DC comic book realm, they talk about cities that are fictitious and not real. They just say Kansas, USA. They actually, no, they mentioned Smallville too. They do mention Smallville. He's from Smallville, Kansas. In the Henry Cavill film, when Superman came back, if you remember, they asked him, he says, "You're an alien. You've been here." He says, I'm not an alien. I grew up in Kansas. I grew up in Smallville. So he does mention where he's from. Hell, they even made the show that came on TV, Smallville. So, and recently they had the show on Fox for many years that really concentrated on Commissioner Gordon and his rise to become commissioner, Gotham, which was on Fox for many moons. So yeah, the one thing I've always tripped out about DC is, I don't know, their superheroes always seemed like good, like do-gooders. Like they could do no wrong. The only one that really had any sinisterness behind him was Batman, because of his, his origin, his parents dying, and he became a hero. They gave him the standards of not killing and bringing people to justice, even though he knew that some of these people probably needed to perish. I've always liked Marvel comics for their grittiness. Marvel comics didn't play around a lot, and they didn't mince words a lot. Do they have do-gooder types in Marvel comics? Yes. Spider-Man is considered a do-gooder type hero. Even Daredevil is considered a do-gooder type, but he has an edge. Daredevil likes to kick the dog shit out of people. I always like that about Daredevil's character. Punisher is obviously an anti-hero. Punisher is one that feels like criminals should not be alive. That's gritty as they can come. That's as gritty as you could possibly get. As far as I'm concerned, I really respect that. Not saying that people should die, but if there's going to be a guy out there who says some criminals just don't need to be brought to justice, they need to be put to death, even if that's against every standard and every moral compass that people have, I can get where he would feel that way. What did Chris just say? Superman was used as a U.S. propaganda during the World Wars. Yeah, you mean as far as in real life? Yes, as well as Captain America. And that's the reason why Captain America was created as well. He was used as proper, and even that was even told in the comics. So they took what was going on in the real world and put it in the comics, talking about the real world. Hell, they used to sell bonds, not only with Uncle Sam pointing like "I want you" and blah, or getting people to join. They would use Captain America as well for people to join, which made people feel like superheroes by joining the army and being in the armed services. So yeah, you're right about that. You bring up some great points, Chris. Most animation was used in the golden era. Yeah, what let me ask you about anybody on the chat, because I see Chris is the only one that's really engaging. When do you think the golden era of DC was? Obviously, the golden era of DC preceded Marvel, because Marvel didn't come around until the late 60s, early 70s. What would you consider the golden era? I'll wait. I haven't got anything yet. I say the golden era of obviously DC Comics was in the 1950s. Yeah, that 30s and 40s, yes. 30s and 40s, yes. But the 1950s is when that company went absolutely bonkers. When was the first Superman comic in the comic books, or was it in the newspaper? I want to see what you say about that. I think the first one, I think Spider-Man actually was in the newspaper before it actually became a comic. If I'm not mistaken, now correct me if I'm wrong. And I think Batman also was in the newspaper before they actually made comic books. And comic books at one time was 1 cent. All you needed was a penny to buy a comic back in the 1940s, which is a lot of damn money. People don't realize 5 cents you can get a loaf of bread back then. 5 cents. Wow, that's crazy. But to be honest with you, what he say that the 50s is when they changed from Image Comics, and yes, Spider-Man was in the newspaper. See, that's why I love Chris. Chris has always got it cracking. Yes, Spider-Man did start a newspaper, and for the longest time, even when there was a Spider-Man comic book that you could buy, it was still in the newspaper. How do I know that? Hell, I used to read it when I was a little kid back in Alabama. In the newspaper, I used to see Spider-Man comics when I was a little kid. I couldn't read worth a damn. I was real young, but I would always look at the pictures. So yeah, Spider-Man started off in the newspaper, which subsequently they moved him over to comic books and gave him his own issue. I'm going to ask some questions now just to see where people's knowledge is. Like I said, I only see my man Chris on here really answering these questions. But when was the first comic book? Now, a lot of people don't know, I use the moniker Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze. And I was wanting to talk about this on the podcast because Doc Savage was the first Superman. You heard me. Doc Savage comics, or Doc Savage's comics in the newspaper, started in the 1920s, 1930s. Before Superman, before Batman, before anybody, there was Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze. I'll give you an origin about Doc Savage. Doc was, I guess you could consider him super. He was a human being. Had a genius IQ, but there was something about his skin. He had this bronze skin that made him invulnerable. To be honest with you, I don't even remember how he got that skin. I don't remember. I can't remember the story. Look it up yourself. You're going to love the story behind Doc Savage. There was a film, and only one film, about Doc Savage that was made back in the 1980s, starred by, you all know who this guy is because you used to watch him on Tarzan, the TV show, Ron Ely. Ron Ely was the man who portrayed Doc Savage in the films, in the movies, or in that movie. It was a great, great movie too, by the way. Super underrated. If you haven't seen Doc Savage, go see it or look it up, stream it. All you got to do is put Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze in, and it'll pop up. It's absolutely not only funny, but it's really, really good. And he played that part excellent. Doc was a billionaire. He was a scientist, and he also was like, let me combine him. I would say he was a combination, and this is a weird, crazy combination. He's a combination of Superman, Batman, James Bond, Reed Richards. He had a whole bunch of different people in him, and he also traveled with a band of gentlemen, and they were all different shapes and sizes. These guys were tough; they could fight. They were very smart, and they were like his team. They were like his wise men, and they would help Doc solve, all these, go on these adventures, and they would solve all these different problems. If you ever watched the movie Doc Savage starring Ron Ely, you'll see what I mean. for the USA at least. He said The Adventures of Obadiah Old Buck, 1837, was the first comic book published. Now that is some hell of an information. Say that again for those who didn't see that, Chris. The Adventures of Obadiah Old Buck, 1837 was the first comic book ever published. That is some goddamn news right there. I gotta give it to you. Thank you for bringing that up to us. Man, that's something that we need to definitely hold on to when we consider the first comic book ever. Was that a serial? Was that something that kept what I don't, if you can find out what newspaper was that in, what state was that in? Was that a national publication? Was it all over the United States, or was it just in a state or in a city somewhere on the East Coast? Find that out for me, Chris. He said for the USA at least. That's pretty wild. I'm gonna have to look that up. I had no idea about that. I had never heard that before in my life. But Doc Savage, one of the oldest comic book heroes before Superman and before Batman. And before the actual show ends up, I end up signing off. I want to talk about the new film coming out, Captain America, Brave New World. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about it because a lot of people don't know who's probably in this film, and it's starring. And the funny thing about movies to me, we know for a fact that Anthony Mackie is the new Captain America. He's a combination of Falcon and Cap, all in one in the Marvel universe. But he doesn't get top billing in this film. I wonder why. Harrison Ford is the top on the cast list in this movie. Yes, he's playing Red Hulk, for those who don't know. But I still seem to think that Anthony Mackie should be the one who's getting top billing in this film. That's just my opinion. But it stars all these people right here. It stars Harrison Ford, Anthony Mackie, Seth Rollins. For those who don't know who that is, Seth Rollins is a wrestler from the WWE. He's in Brave New World. Rosa Salazar, Shira Hawes, Danny Ramirez, Giancarlo Esposito, Giancarlo Esposito is all over the place, man. He is on hell, he was in the Star Wars Mandalorian series. The man was in Breaking Bad. I mean, he's just in every damn thing. The dude is one of those actors that you just call upon, but he's so low on the cast list, it's amazing. Liv Tyler, I guess she's reprising her role as Dr. Betty Ross. If you remember, Liv Tyler played Betty Ross in the Edward Norton starred Hulk, the Hulk film. And Edward Norton was supposed to be Hulk in the Avengers and all that, but he got recast because they had salary problems, and it was Mark Ruffalo who they went to become Hulk. But Liv Tyler is reprising her role as Dr. Betty Ross. Tim Blake Nelson. If you remember watching the Edward Norton film, The Hulk, Tim Blake Nelson played the other scientist who was trying to help him get rid of the Hulk, who ended up getting his head split open, and some of that Hulk blood went inside of his womb, which made his head grow. Well, guess what? That man is now the leader. He's one of Hulk's nemesis and always has been. It's a lot of writing here what Chris is doing. Let me see what he said here. Oh, this is something I think everybody needs to hear. The Obadiah Old Buck, 1837 comic book. This is what Chris has said. It was created in 1827, first published in Geneva, Switzerland. Now, seeing as it was in Geneva, we really don't give a damn about no damn Geneva, Switzerland superhero. But I think this is interesting, so I'm going to continue. 1837, as a historian de Mr. Vaux Vos Boss, or something like that, in London in 1941 by Tooth and Bogue Editions as the book. The Adventures of Mr. Obadiah Old Buck, and then in New York, in the U.S., in a newspaper supplement titled Brother Jonathan Extra Number. What is that? I don't know what number that is in Roman numerals. Hell, I don't know what that is. What's that? 18, 20, 21? September 14, 1842, followed by an 1849 republication. Adventures of Mr. Obadiah Olbrook, published in New York by Wilson and Company. The English language editions were unlicensed copies of the original work, and they were done without authorization. Old Brook is commonly referred to as the first comic book printed in the U.S. and America. Now you did a fucking deep dive on that, and I hate to curse on a comic book show, but this show's not for kids anyway. But you did a super deep dive on that, and I think basically what you was trying to do is show me how smart you are, and you did. You really did. But to be honest with you, the only one that I know of was Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze, and that's the reason why I took that moniker. Obviously, I am a Man of Bronze, which I thought was really cool, and I always liked the name Doc Savage. They're talking about coming out with not only a Doc Savage comics, a new one if they haven't already. They're also thinking about, and it's a DC property for those who didn't know. They're also thinking about coming out with a DC film called Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze. Yet to be cast. I don't even know if they penned a script for it, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue with the cast of Brave New World. Emily Van Camp, everybody knows her as Agent Sharon Carter. She was debuted in The Winter Soldier. She's going to be in Brave New World. We got Carl Lumbly, Isaiah Bradley. He's the black Captain America, who they subsequently jailed for being Captain America. I don't know why the hell they would do that, but he was the one after Steve Rogers went into the ice they gave the super soldier serum to, and it actually worked, and he went on to help a whole bunch of people. From what I understand, him getting the super soldier serum, he supposedly, in the comic books that I read, not that I found out, he went down south and was helping black people during some, racial stuff, and that was one of the reasons why they put him in jail. He was in jail in the comics. I don't know this lady's name. It's XOS Osha Wakumore. I don't know what part. She's playing a Secret Service agent, I think. Rachel Markkinen, presidential aide. Johannes Harkin, I don't know who he's playing. And Takahira Hira is the prime minister, or something to that effect. And let me see who the villains are. Summary of Captain America Brave New World's features at least 5 antagonists. Red Hulk, the leader. Ruth Bat-Seraphine, Giancarlo Esposito's mysterious character, and a possible mind-controlled Isaiah Bradley. Well, it seems like Isaiah Bradley might be using his powers against the Falcon because his mind will be subsequently controlled by someone. This movie has been in the making now for over 4 or 5 years. They've had several script rewrites, and the rumor is the rewrites they were having is because they're trying to tone down the fact that they didn't really want this black superhero to be considered. But Hollywood is not colorblind, and one thing they don't want to do is, how should I put this? I don't want to, I hate to keep talking about race and all these different things, but it's just a part of the game. They don't really want black characters to seem heroic for whatever reason. And they don't want these films to not only, like Black Panther is the only character they've ever really celebrated as a superhero and given him props and made, you see how it made black people feel when that film came out. And if you really, really go and watch the Black Panther films, Black Panther really wasn't as heroic as any of these other films. He was heroic, but he seemed very stoic and very laid back. He didn't like to fight. But all of the other characters, whether it be Captain America or Iron Man, they're so tough and they're doing this and they're whooping butt and they're beating up stuff. And Black Panther, the toughest he looked was in Civil War when he was pissed off at the fact that Winter Soldier may have killed his dad, even though that turned out not to be true. It turned out to be Dr. What's-His-Face. I forget his goddamn name, but he ended up killing his father. But that was the toughest I saw Black Panther. In all his films, he wasn't that tough. He was very reserved and very laid back. and they always try to subdue black characters and not give them this fierceness that they deserve. They need to be as fierce as their white counterparts, I believe. But that's just my opinion. I love comic books. I love superheroes. I always have. Hulk being one of my favorites. For those who don't notice, I got my Hulk shirt on. I'm a big fan of Hulk. As you can see, I love Spider-Man, and you got the Wakanda Forever up there. I'm a big fan of all of it. Let me see what Chris says. Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, is a 1975 American action film starring Ron Ely. Yeah, I already said that. As pulp hero Doc Savage, this was the last film completed by pioneering scientist fiction producer George Pal. Yep, know that too. Directed by Michael Anderson, didn't know that. Which is why we'll never get a Blue Marvel film. Oh, he's saying this is why we'll never get a Blue Marble film, because they don't want to show a black Superman-like character. And I fucking totally agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. They do not want to show us in a super way. They don't want to show us as superhero. That's the reason why I think Night Thrasher, and I've already put out to Marvel. I sent this to Marvel. They're not going to answer me. They're not going to say anything. I sent them a rendition of Night Thrasher and Michael Jai White. Michael Jai White could play Night Thrasher tomorrow. If they came up with a script and they start shooting, it could be a Marvel TV show on Disney Plus. It would blow people away. It would absolutely blow people away if they did a Night Thrasher show or film. And the greatest black comic book character ever is Blue Marvel, Adam Bernard Bashir. I agree with you. I agree with you. But there's another one too. What is his name? Blue Marvel is the man, but there's almost Apex. It's not Apex. It's not Apex. Oh God, what is his name? Oh God, I can't think of his name. Oh man, God, I wish I could think of his name. I'll make a list, and I'll have another comic book corner, and we'll talk about all of the superhero icon. That's his name. There is a black hero named Icon. This dude is amazing. Turns out he's an alien that came to Earth, and he decided to take the form of a black man, which is the first being that he came in contact with was a black man. But at that particular time, it was during slavery time. So he became a slave, and he didn't show them he had powers. Read this story. Icon is an extraordinarily amazing character. I don't like the fact that he started out as it's very Superman-like as far as his origin. Like, he came from another planet. He was lost. In a sense, he was lost. He took on the moniker or the appearance of a black man during slave times. He grew up as a slave, but he's a super smart, incredibly gifted individual that ended up doing his showing his powers later on, and he doesn't get old. So it's pretty crazy. Icon is an extraordinarily crazy and great story. Is it a fictional superhero appearing in comic books published by DC Comics? One of the headline characters introduced by Milestone Media in the 1990s. Arnold alias Augustus Freeman, the OG Giant Man. Yeah, see, you're coming out with some real dope stuff, bro. Blue Marvel, yeah, and see, let me see, who is that? SO2 Stephen, a being from another planet. He has taken on the form of an African American man and has the abilities such as flight, super strength, and vulnerability. That's Icon. That is Icon. Now, when he took on the form of a black human being, he subsequently became human. Now, he's invulnerable, just like Superman and everything, but now he's in human form, and he was going to continue to be in that form. He's not going to change back like Martian Manhunter or anything like that. He's in that form. Now, if you ever read the comic books, you'll know that Icon is a crazy great character. He's one of the best characters I've ever read. And I like that character. But Icon, Blue Marvel, there's a couple of others. But to be honest with you, a street level crime fighting non-super character like Night Thrasher, Michael Jai White could play that role in his sleep. And I think he deserves to be able to play somebody heroic, and that's an African American. Now, the guy who plays Isaiah Washington, or Isaiah Bradley, I'm sorry, that was the black Captain America that's going to be in Brave New World, and also the Captain America series that was on Disney Plus. He played in a superhero role for DC on Fox many years ago. He played a crippled man who created a suit which gave him the ability to walk, and he called himself Mantis. Mantis is one of the wackest heroes ever. Whack. They always made our heroes have limitations. I don't know. It just bothers me to no end. But that's just me. I hate to be like that. I hate to sound like that. But I just think we don't get a fair shake when it comes to the superhero thing. There's also this thing going on before I let you guys get out of here, before I get out of here, about comic book creators there's a lot of black comic book creators that have black comic book companies that are out there, like Impound Comics. I've actually corresponded with that guy. He's in Los Angeles, but he was based out of Sacramento, and he has companies. His company started in Sacramento. He's got a bunch of characters. He's a brother, and there's some other people too that have started comic book companies that have black characters. And all of these white people are saying, "Why you guys got all these black characters? Why don't you have white characters?" You got to realize something. When we create our art and we create what we know. Are there white characters that we have or that they have on their comic books? Of course, all kinds of different races. But you're only focusing in on the fact that it's a black creator that creates black characters. We're very misrepresented when it comes to that industry. So we're going to create what we know, and we're going to create what we love. If you don't want to read the comics because that character is not the same color as you, hell, Superman is a character that's from another planet. He's not even from our world, and he's white. Aquaman is from the bottom of the sea. He's from the depths of the ocean, and he's white. You know what I'm saying? The only character that take on the guise of a black man is from Mars, and he's not even a real black man. He's a Martian. So, make it make sense. You got to let people create what they want. Don't let your racism intervene into the storytelling of others or individuals. Let me see. Oh, he's got some cool stuff on here. Augustus Freeman, the great grandson, the original human identity, became a superhero alongside his protege Rocket. Yeah, Icon sounds like a very cool character. Yeah, he is amazing. In Final Crisis, Orion kills his father, Darkseid, destabilizing the multiverse. Diana transfers the Milestone characters to the DC universe, and after altering history, so that they were always exited there. Due to his hybrid physiology, Icon possesses a variety of superhero abilities that are unusual even for a Terminator. He possesses superhuman physical abilities and senses, and can fly and generate energy through his hands, obviously. Furthermore, Icon is a skilled combatant and lawyer. Yeah, he was a lawyer too. But that'd be easy for an alien to come to our world and learn about our laws and go and take the bar and that'd be easy for him. That'd be easy for an alien that's not from our world. He'll laugh at all the bullshit that we have here on Earth, as far as like taking tests and learning about, the laws that we have in our world in these different countries. He'd laugh at that shit. That'd be easy for him. But check this out, you guys. We have 54 minutes and 32 seconds and counting. And I gotta say, this has been a hell of an episode. Fun facts all over the place. Please, please, please remember to always enjoy yourself and never let nobody tell you that you can't read comics because it's lame or it's nerdy or any of that bullshit. Don't let nobody ever tell you that, because that ain't true. You can have fun. You can do what you want. You're going to be an originator. Remember the books that I showed you? If you want to go buy a copy, they're out. You can go to Amazon. Marvel Masterworks has all of the stuff in there. Marvel Masterworks, or you can go check this one out right here. Marvel's Greatest Comics. Right there. You're going to be sitting there for hours reading this stuff, because I have been. It's been a master class on comics, Marvel, and more. Next time on the show, I'm going to have some DC fun facts. We kind of touched on it. As you can see, I kind of lean more toward the Marvel universe. I always have. I've just been a big fan of Marvel. But I love Image Comics. I love Dark Horse Comics. I love all the comic book companies and all of the people that make these comics. I'm a big fan of all of them, because I think they do incredible work, and I think they come up with some incredible stuff. But this has been another episode 7 of Comic Book Corner. I appreciate you being here. And remember, you got superhuman abilities your damn self. Do what you need to do. Make your dreams come true. And we'll see you next time on Comic Book Corner.